everybody! In this video we're going to be taking a look at for loops for the first time. Now if you haven't taken a computer programming class before, for loops are one of the most important concepts, and you can think of it as a way of us to do a task over and over again without having to code it by hand. So let's see an example. I'm going to start by making a new script, and in this script I'm going to start by typing the word for. So you can guess for is why we call it a for loop, and these are always going to end with the word end. So this is kind of the basic setup. Then what I'm going to say is I'm going to pick a variable, let's say I, doesn't matter, it's called a dummy variable. So if you know sigma notation from maybe math 2b, when you're indexing your sums it doesn't really matter which variable you pick, so I'm just going to say I. So for I equal to the vector that goes from 1 to 10, so 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10, I want to display I. Then I'm going to save it, and let's call it my script. So now it's saved, and I'm going to say my script to run the script. And we can see here it displays the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. So you can imagine if I wanted to do this by hand, I could do something like display 1, display 2, display 3, display 4, and so on. But because we used a for loop, I only had to type those commands once. Great. You might ask, well, what if we wanted to display something like, what if I put I in quotation marks? Or let's do it with single character, single quotations. The difference between single and double quotations, if you have single quotations, these are called characters. You can think of them as letters. They're like building blocks of strings. So think about what this is going to do. First, it's going to say for I equal to 1, display I. Then when I is equal to 2, display I. And because this is in quotes, it's just going to display the letter I. So let's save it and take a look. So again, I'm just going to run my script, and we can see here it types out I 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10 times. So another thing that we can do is, like I mentioned, this variable up here is not very important, right? I could change this to a J, and I could still have it display the character I, and it'll work just the same. So maybe just to emphasize again what this is doing, remember that the notation 1 to 10, what that really means is, oops, that's not how we do a comment. We're saying J is going to take entries in the vector 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. And then what it's going to do is it's going to say first let's set J equal to 1. Then it's going to display the character I. Then it's going to set J equal to 2. And it's going to display the character I again. So just so that we're all on the same page, I'm going to save this and let's run it one more time. So remember, the only difference here is I just changed the indexing variable. The I is being displayed every time. So one other thing I want to draw your attention to is if we go again back to our script. So what happens if I remove the quotations around I here? So I'm saying display I, I'm using the indexing variable J, and you can see here we're getting a warning. And the warning is saying, okay, for improved robustness, consider replacing I and J by, I think it says 1I. But basically what the issue is going to be with this is something you'll see in a moment. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to the command window, and I want you to notice that I is set equal to 10 from all the way back when we first wrote the first version of my script. So remember, scripts are able to access command window variables. So now if I call my script, remember I is equal to 10. So right now it's just printing out 10 times. So that's why we got this little error message here, or not error, but a warning basically saying, hey, this can access variables in the command window. If I is already defined, that's going to be interesting, maybe not exactly what you want. So you probably already noticed this if you had watched the earlier video on M files and scripts. we want to start all of our scripts with the word clear. So what this is going to do is make sure that it's not accessing anything from the command window. And now we can see, okay, what happens if we go back and run this code? So we still have this warning with I, we're indexing with J, and something a little bit strange is going to happen now. So I'm going to run my script again. And what's happening here is MATLAB is treating I in the script as though it's the imaginary number I. So if you're familiar with complex analysis, we can represent I by the point 0, 1 in the complex plane. And basically this is just a representation of that. So that's what's going on here. It's treating I as an imaginary number, so something a little bit strange. Another thing I want to show you, so also as mentioned in earlier videos, most of what we do in this class is going to be in functions instead of scripts. So almost anything that deals with a complicated sequence of commands is going to be done in a function. So let's try putting a for loop in a function. So how about I call this function hello, and I'm going to have just a single input. It's going to be a positive integer n, and I'm not going to have any output. And this is a pretty simple function, so I'm not going to do any documentation. And now I'm going to write the for loop. So I'm going to say for, and remember we need to end it with end. And now I'm going to say for, let's say, a equal for 1, the vector 1 to n. And again, the variable a is called a dummy variable. It could be anything really that we wanted. It's just something that we're indexing with. Again, like if we're using sigma notation, what we might index our sum with. Then I'm going to have it to display hello world. So let's save our function as fn underscore hello. Remember, it should be called the same thing as what we named it up here. And think about what's happening here. I'm going to pass a number n into the function. So let's say n is 5. Then it's going to say for a equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 5. We're going to display hello world. So it should print it out the number of times that we specify. So let's go see how this works. I'm going to say fn underscore hello, and I really like the number 3, so let's do fn hello of 3, and we can see that hello world gets printed 3 times. So in the next video we're going to talk a little bit more about for loops, and in a video after that we'll talk about, well, how can we combine 2 or more for loops. So please reach out if you have any questions at this point, and otherwise I will see you in the next video.